Hello there, people of the internet. Today I'm talking about a really good alternative to a No. 5 jungle carbine. This right here is a Santa Fe conversion. I hear a lot of different people bring up a lot of different subjects whenever I bring up not necessarily this rifle, but rifles like this. You guys have seen this rifle on the channel before numerous times. I love bringing this thing out. I love shooting it. Unfortunately, my wallet does not, because right now 303 British ammunition is quite expensive, so I cannot run this rifle nearly as much as I would like to, or as much as I used to. I remember back whenever 303 Brit, before, you know, they flooded in from Ethiopia, you could pick up the cheap steel case 303 for like 50 to 60 cents a round, sometimes even cheaper than that. Like, I would pick it up probably around 40 cents a round because I would buy, you know, in bulk. I'd pick up 500 rounds at a time. Well, you can't do that anymore nowadays, but I digress. Obviously, you can tell, if you know what you're looking at, you can tell right away that this right here is not a legitimate No. 5 Enfield. This right here is just the Santa Fe conversion. Santa Fe back in the 50s and 60s over in California converted a whole bunch of different rifles, Mausers, Enfields, Mosins. They made sporterizations, they made them different models, they made all sorts of stuff. They did go out of business in the late 1960s, and another company spawned up from then that went out of business again in like the 1980s. But for the most part, what they made during that time period, since they made so much, can still be found pretty readily. And whenever you do come across them, they're not overly expensive. Like, for example, this No. 5 jungle carbine, I think I paid about 250 bucks for this thing back in 2019, 2018, somewhere in that time period. And automatically, whenever I bring up the price point of, you know, some of these different rifles that I have bought that look like something else but are not actually that something else, I always get somebody somewhere who brings up exactly this point. They'll start saying, oh, that's not an actual No. 5, so it's junk, it's garbage, it's worthless. You know, I wouldn't even look at that thing. Clint Smith once said that he wouldn't keep a 380 up his ass if he had room for a tugboat. Well, these people would feel the exact same way about anything that is not the original real deal. Well, if you want to, you know, pay out 900 bucks for an original No. 5 carbine, then hey, by all means, you go ahead and you do that. But if you are like me, and you would much rather get the $250 look-alike rifle along with, you know, 1,500 rounds of ammunition for still less money, if we're talking about old prices, and spend a lot of time at the range and whatnot, that right there would definitely be, at least in my opinion, the preferred way to go. Not only that, but if you have yourself a legitimate No. 5, then you are worried about, I mean, at this point, it's a historical relic, it's a collectible, you don't want to tear it up, you don't want to beat it up. If you're getting it specifically for collector's purposes and it's going to be a wall hanger, then hey, go ahead and get yourself a No. 5, especially if you have the money to dish out on it. However, if you want, I mean, in my particular case, I just wanted a 303 British rifle that was not overly long and cumbersome like the No. 4 rifles and the No. 1 rifles are. They are quite on the hefty side, but I did not want to get myself a sporterized Enfield just because they are, a lot of sporterized Enfields, anyone who's ever dealt with one, that they themselves did not do, they know that sporterized Enfields can oftentimes have issues, especially if you have somebody who decided to play around with the magazine. The magazines on these rifles are definitely the weak point. But once again, I digress. I did not want to dish out the money for an actual No. 5, and that would also be a rifle that I didn't feel like tearing up. Well, guess what? This one right here, I have absolutely no issues treating like shit just because it is already torn up. The stock on this thing is quite rough, quite scratched. The finish is not on the best side, and it's a $250 rifle. It's not an actual No. 5. It's not collectible. It's not in any way important to the grand scheme of military surplus rifles. Now, that being said, it is still a phenomenal rifle. back whenever Santa Fe was making these jungle carbines, they made a lot of jungle carbines out of number 4s, but they also made quite a few out of number 1s. A lot less, but this right here is one of the number 1 Mark III conversions into a jungle carbine. So it is still, at the bones of the rifle, it is still a magnificently good rifle, just because the number 1 rifle series was phenomenal in terms of robustness, in terms of reliability, in terms of what they could handle, in terms of accuracy. For the most part, they definitely had a lot of things going for them. I myself don't like the charging clips of the Enfield series, so I typically don't use them myself, but that's like the biggest shortcoming of using these rifles, the feeding systems, meaning charging clips and the magazines. But besides that, the actions are magnificent, nice and fast. This right here, although it is a conversion, does have a very, what's the word I'm looking for, enjoyable muzzle brake on it. 303 already has a lot of power behind it. It has a lot of force, and whenever you shorten that barrel, this right here is a 19-inch barrel. Whenever you shorten that barrel and fire the same round, the concussive blast gets crazy. I have an M44 and a Type 53 that I don't really like shooting for exactly that reason. Well, this muzzle brake, this right here actually, or would it be a muzzle compensator? Anyway, this muzzle device right here actually does a magnificent job at keeping the excessive concussive force from blasting back onto me. Apparently, it makes the gun a lot louder in that direction, but it does a magnificent job at protecting me from excessive noise and excessive, what's the word I'm looking for? Teeth rattling concussive force. That is the best way to describe that. There's also a quite nice rubber butt pad on this, which actually really does significantly help with the recoil. But there are, of course, a couple of shortcomings with a conversion like this. Since this right here was originally a number 1 rifle, it did originally have the leaf sight on the front, which obviously has been removed. It's been replaced with an aperture sight on the rear, much like the wartime economy number 4 rifles had done. However, what I really don't like about this is the aperture sight was put right on the bridge where the charging handle, or not the charging handle, the charging clips are stuffed into the receiver. I mean, it is, that sight is literally right in the way of wanting to reload your rifle. So every time I have to reload this rifle, I have to move that out of the way just so I can get my rounds in there. I've tried keeping it there and just single loading, but you smack that rear sight and it actually bends down in front of the bolt. So you could close the bolt, but you risk breaking your sights. The sight on this thing is definitely one of my least favorite aspects about it. Now, if it was turned around, I could understand it being that case, because then it would not be in the way. But my 300 battle sight puts the 600 battle sight, my 300 yard battle sight puts the 600 yard battle sight right in the way of loading this rifle. Now, I have thought about turning it around myself. Honestly, just with the way it is, in my book, that right there looks like it's backwards, although it's the same way on my number 4. I've tried just turning it around myself because I don't really fire past 100 yards, especially whenever I'm shooting at my range here. But the screw on this thing, I don't know who the hell decided to put this on, but it is sketchy. Like, I don't want to break it or mess it up, so the rear sight is just staying right where it's going to be staying. Now, I have made plenty of videos on Enfield series rifles, and I've made plenty of videos on this rifle right here. The reason I'm making this video in particular is because I've had a lot of people ask me about number 5 jungle carbine rifles, and I mean, by all means, they're fantastic rifles, but they're like, do you know where I can find them a little bit cheaper? Because I mean, I can get a number 4 rifle for like 400 bucks, and yet they're wanting more than double that for a number 5. And I'm like, well, you can't really find a number 5 for cheaper because, well, they're that's just the price that the market has decided that they're going to cost. But you can find yourself plenty of these Santa Fe conversions, although Santa Fe is out of California is not the only ones that converted rifles to look like jungle carbines. Since this is still a #1 Mark III rifle, you know, at its core, it is still a fantastic rifle. It still hits right where I want it to hit. It's still reliable, robust. It still has all of the perks that a #1 rifle has. It just looks like a #5. Now, this right here is the second kind of person that always pops up whenever I make videos like this. They always talk about how they have, you know, a converted rifle like this, and because it looks like a jungle carbine, it is worth as much as a jungle carbine. I see people all the time saying, like, for example, I actually talked to someone not too terribly long ago. I have a Volunteer Enterprises Commando Mark III M1A1 Thompson lookalike that uses grease gun magazines, right? I think I paid, oh, I don't know, $400 for that thing. It works reasonably well whenever you use actual brass ammunition that hasn't been downloaded and is reliable in terms of consistency. But I was talking to somebody who was looking to sell theirs, and they decided to talk to me because I own a lot of firearms and they just wanted to sell theirs. They were asking for $1,200 for theirs, and I was like, are you absolutely insane? And they were like, well, I know what I have. They said it's a Thompson submachine gun M1A1. And I'm like, you're sort of correct, but, well, I told him, tell me what it is that you think that you have. And he sent me a photo of auto ordnance, like a new manufactured auto ordnance closed bolt Thompson M1A1 lookalike, which was at like $2,000. So he had said $1,200 is more than enough for a used gun in this configuration, and I was like, that's not how that. This is a completely different gun made by a completely different company. That, like, people, I'm trying to explain this without going on a tangent. He told me that he knew what he had and he knew what it was worth because it looked the same as what this bigger company had made. Just because it looked the same, he decided it was worth, you know, as much, but since it was used, he doused down the price a little bit. If you look at an ATI OmniMax polymer receiver AR-15 and you compare that with like a legitimate M4, like a Colt M4, configured, if you were to configure them to be the same, then they would look really, really similar, but they are not at all in the similar price range. Anyway, although this right here is a remarkably nice rifle, it should, don't pay like actual jungle carbine prices for a conversion rifle. But it should be a lot cheaper to find one of these than it would be to find a legitimate #5. Okay, that being said, now comes the actual shooting portion of this video. I have a handful of rounds. How many rounds do I actually have in my pocket? I have 5 rounds of .303 British ammunition here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna step out to about 100 yards. I'm gonna set up camera B. Hopefully we don't get rained out. Ah, crap, it's already raining. Alright, I'm going to go inside and wait for the rain to go away, and then we're going to set up camera B, step out to about 100 yards, and lob some lead at my white steel silhouette target down there. Alright, I guess I'm going to wait out the rain. Hopefully, it doesn't keep raining. Alright, I'll be back. Okay, well, the rain has stopped. Finally. Looks like it's about time for me to trim this tree up, because I normally like to sit my rifles right here, because it's just at the perfect height for me. So I got camera B downrange. Let's go ahead. I got 5 rounds of ammunition loaded up to this jungle carbine. I should have very little issues making hits out on target, not unless something drastically changed with this rifle. I mean, wandering zeros have happened to me before. Let's see if they happen again. Actually, just because you guys can't see the target down there, let's go ahead and change positions of this camera. There we go. Now you guys can actually watch me fire the rifle versus just staring at my back, right? Okay, camera B will be up somewhere around here. Let's go ahead and send some lead. Let me go ahead and drop back down to 300 yard meter here. This rifle, the recoil is not so bad with the butt pad, but it is pretty jumpy. So that is one of the downsides that I don't like about like the lightweight carbine versions of rifles that fire full power cartridges. Looks like it did hit my target though, or at least the target changed colors. That's a good sign that I hit it. Oh yeah, I heard the shot that time. Now, this rifle right here, the main battle sight is zeroed out to 300 meters or 300 yards. I can't quite remember what, but either way I have to aim quite considerably under the target to make hits on target. I actually can't see my target because with the aperture sight, there's that piece of metal above the actual sight radius that blocks my line of view. So I'm actually aiming under the target and making hits on target. Ooh, Nelly. It looks like it's starting to fall now. I hope that I can at least get these last 2 shots to ring out before it actually drops. I'm not sure where I hit on that last one, but I'd like to think I hit it. I'd like to think I'm nailing every shot, but like I said, I can't even see my target with these particular sights. That one, I think I pulled a little bit right. I think I nailed the rim on that one. It didn't quite sound like the steel target ringing out. It sounded like me striking the rim, which is also really cool. I like whenever that happens because it normally makes like a puff of smoke or flying debris or something. Okay, should I gather my steel case 303 just in case I feel like we're loading them down the road? I don't know. I don't know. The ground's wet, so they're gonna be wet. It's gonna be a hassle. I'll just leave them there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, or rather gentlemen, or rather unusual people of the internet that happen to find this channel, thanks for checking out my video on a good, cheap alternative to a number 5 jungle carbine. This right here is definitely a rifle that will do you well, but not at a lot of money. Wow, that sounded way worse than it was supposed to. I swear that wasn't a hooker joke, not an innuendo in any way whatsoever, but that's what it sounded like. Anyway, folks, thanks for checking out the video. I really do appreciate you at least stopping by. If you made it this far into the video, hey, I love you. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. I do this kind of stuff all the time. If you like the video, do me a favor and actually like the video. That definitely helps out against YouTube's algorithm. What else? Description down below. You're going to find a bunch of links to all sorts of cool places to go. That being said, I am going to... What am I going to do? I'm going to go make another video. I feel like shooting and the rain like just stopped and it looks like we have more coming that way. I feel like blasting some rounds downrange. So I wish I had more 303 and I wish 303 was cheaper because man, I would love. I want to take this rifle out and burn rounds through it like I used to, but unfortunately I just don't have the means to do that right now. Anyway, folks, once again, thanks for watching. You guys go off. Have a fantastic day. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen.
It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.